Kate has actually done the show before, and I'm so glad she decided to come back. She's also known as Tattooed Nana. She's a teacher, an artist, an actor, a blogger, a playwright, and you know the list just keeps going on. She's a little bit of everything. And she also, wow, she knits and she marches for causes like reproductive freedom, same-sex marriage, immigrants' rights, and gun safety. And she's co-written and will play lead in an Irish comedy for Summer's French called It's Your Man, the Pope, Father Ned. Something like that. It's Your Man, the Pope, Father Ned. Maybe she'll explain it. I don't know. But this is Kate Duffy Sim, everyone.
Tránthóra Mahagat is Mishakat, agus fecum duina mar. And you're not that drunk. I was speaking the Irish language, and what I said was, good evening. My name is Kate, and I see dead people. I'm here to tell you 2 true ghost stories of Irish origin, my own. You can call me a ghost whisperer, or a psychic medium, or just psycho. I'm not sure how I got this ability, but I believe it started in utero, in my mother's womb, because that is where I first encountered death. You see, I was conceived with a twin, but on February 26, 1956, I was born an only child. Now, how and when my sibling was lost, I'll probably never know. The people who could tell me that story are themselves long dead, and they're not talking. But 3 years ago, at age 59, I learned through an old and long secreted letter that I had a twin brother, and that his name was Christopher Anthony Duffy, Mondror, which in the Irish language means my brother. My birthday was last Monday, and it's been a bittersweet day ever since I learned about Christopher, because I'm glad I'm here. Hell, I'm 62, I'm glad to be up there. But I'm sorry he's not. And I'm never sure how to mark the occasion. I mean, how do you grieve someone that you miss with all of your being, but that you've never met? Actually, I think he has been close to me. As a child, I had an imaginary friend, a boy named Christopher, my age and my size, with my coloring and my eyes. And after I learned the truth about him in 2015, he began to appear all around me. In the beginning, a silent little boy in a striped shirt and brown corduroy pants, peeking around a chair, looking at me with sad eyes. My eyes are mother's eyes. Lately, I've seen a middle-aged man sitting on my couch with my father's build and my father's face, but with my coloring and my eyes. And he will give me a sidewise glance and a slight smile, and then he fades away. I'm glad that older Chris looks happier than younger Chris, and I think that might have something to do with me coming to terms with my own grief. I believe I was born grieving, wanting to sustain contact with the first soul I ever encountered, even before consciousness. I think this accounts in part for my second sight. I was so close to someone who crossed over that when that door opened for him, I put my foot in it. And when it closed, it left a mark on me, and the door has been ajar ever since. And I don't think it's any coincidence that I was born breech with nerve damage that has resulted in a slight limp all of my life. I stuck my foot in the door between life and death, and when I came into life, Death had already marked me, and the door has never completely closed. Some of my ability is just inherited. I come from a huge Irish Catholic family, the Duffy family. And when I say huge Irish Catholic family, I am talking about a stereotype that borders on cartoon. Age-wise, I am somewhere in an array of 34 grandchildren. Had my brother lived, there would have been 35 of us. And now that we have had our own children and grandchildren, we honestly do not know how many Duffys there are. Most of us see and hear the dead, and we don't question it because it's just part of who we are as a clan. If you go to visit my cousin Carol, she will say, "If you see a Confederate soldier standing over by the fireplace, don't worry, he won't hurt you, he's just lost." My baby cousin Ben, Carol's grandson, used to talk about people who would go up and down the hall and vanish like a mist. He was 3 years old at the time, also very dramatic. My own Nana, for whom I took my name when I became a grandparent, has spoken to my aunts and my cousins, her soft southern tones coming somewhere from near the sea. So when it comes to seeing the other side, I'm just another one of the Duffys. Okay, Kate, you say, we got your history, but how do you know you haven't projected your own grief and shock into the image of a child you see in your mind's eye? And maybe your family has just incorporated these stories of encounters with the other side as part of the Duffy mythology to be shared at the Mammoth Duffy family reunions. I know it's skeptical for people. I know it's natural for people to be skeptical about this ability and to want verification, and that's how I know I have an ability. I have verification of so many experiences that I don't have time to share tonight, but I will tell you two. Let me tell you about the first time my brother spoke to me. It was a few days after my 59th birthday, which had been a terrible day because that was the first day I truly realized how alone I was. I was sitting in a chair in a room by myself, and I said sadly, "Chris, are you there?" I immediately heard 4 words at the base of my right ear, because when the dead speak to me, this is the receiver. I heard root beer, ribbon, marble. I scrambled to write them down and hoped that at some point they would make sense. I mean, I could see some logic there. My grandmother used to take me to the root beer stand, and maybe my brother had been somewhere present. I was a little girl. I'd had pigtails and ponytails and ribbons. And I did play marbles with my dad, and maybe my brother was, directing my shooter. But it wasn't until a few days later that it all started to make sense. On a blustery Friday in March, I had run to the now defunct Marsh store at 86 and Ditch. While I was cruising the deli, I saw a bottle of root beer. So I purchased it, took a swig, toasted my brother, "Cilantro Creaster," which in Irish means cheers, Chris. I finished my shopping and went to my car, the wind whipping at my hair and clothes. There, wrapped around the handle of the door on the driver's side, was a silky ribbon. Lilac. Like my favorite flower. It hadn't been blown there, and it was put on to stay. I had to really work to get that ribbon loose and in my hand. And I was struck by the coincidence, root beer ribbon. So I took the ribbon home, I tied it around a statue of St. Christopher. I have it in my home. The next day, Saturday, my husband and I went to the art gallery. And we were cruising the American Gallery. And I said to him, "Oh, there's a painting here I really want you to see. I brought a group of students here a while ago, and they dragged me over to see it because they said it looked just like me. And they also assured me it's not one of the naked ones." I located the painting, which is titled Calypso, painted by George Hitchcock in 1906. It is a woman in profile with a face and hair strikingly similar to my own. She wears a white gauzy gown, and although I'd seen the painting several times before, I had never noticed until that day that her dress was trimmed with a lilac ribbon, the same color as the one I had found in my car the day before. I was ready to call that 2 for 3. My third validation came in July of that year when my husband and I toured a botanical garden in Michigan and ventured into the play area for children. Movable sculpture set on mulch, lots of nice shade trees. A flash of light and color caught my eye. I looked down, moved the mulch, and there was a marble, the same exact color as my lilac ribbon. These are my brother's gifts to me. A ribbon for a little girl, a marble for a little boy, identical in color. Twins. My other experience that I will share with you took place several years earlier before I learned of my brother in the summer of 2007. I was walking my dog to the vet. It's along 48th Street between Park and Broadway. We no longer live in that neighborhood, but I always loved being on those streets and looking at the historic houses and wondering who might have lived there. And as I looked over to my right, I saw a woman standing in a drive next to a house. What was the image of a woman? Sort of like a sepia tone photograph. And she wasn't standing in the drive, she was a few feet above the drive. She was short and stocky, and she wore a large apron over a plain print dress. Her face was plain and square, and her hair parted in the middle, pulled back severely, I assumed in a bun. I heard, at the base of my right ear, Mary. She was so much more distinct and clearly defined than any of the departed I had ever seen before. I immediately felt both attachment to her and a slight fear of her. She was just so real. I would see Mary again the next week, standing about 15 feet away in my backyard, looking at me with the same determined gaze, clear eyes focused right at me. I was on the other side of the door in my kitchen. One thing I will tell you about the dead, they are fast. It didn't take her a fraction of a second from the back of the yard, face to face with me on the other side of the kitchen door. Now I was scared because I had been approached and followed before by energies that weren't that good. I felt Mary had a strong pull to me, but I got no other indication of why she was there or what she wanted. The summer of 2007 was a difficult one for me. I had serious doubts about my relationship with the man who would soon be my husband, and it all worked out. This is his tattoo right here. We're good. We've been good. I was burning out at my job, a job I had once loved at an institution that had been the most steadfast thing in my life for over 20 years. Through marriage, divorce, the birth of my child, I had had that job. And now I felt unwanted, unappreciated. I just saw no hope and no joy in the future. One afternoon that summer, it just all fell on me like a stone. I threw myself on the bed, I buried my face in my pillow, and I began to sob. Those deep, racking sobs of someone who just has hit the bottom of the well and sees no hope. I immediately became aware of Mary. She was in the house. She was in the bedroom. She was in the bed. She was lying on the bed next to me. I could see her and I could feel her energy. It was palpable between the two of us. I knew she wanted to touch me. What the hell was going on? Did I have some lecherous lesbian's ghost in my bed? Mary lifted up off the bedspread, hovered over me, and melted down into me like a warm blanket. In that moment, I felt the purest love I have ever known. I smiled, my body relaxed. I would be all right. Somebody loved me. Mary loved me without condition, without expectation, without reserve. Mary vanished, but she left me awash in my first adult experience of healing unconditional love. I did not see Mary for a few months until I received an email from my cousin Brian Duffy, one of the 34, a history buff and the family genealogist. He sent me a file with attachments of several old captioned photos he found in his father's attic. Sepia tone photos. As I scrolled down through the pictures, I saw her again. It was her, the woman I knew as Mary. She was looking right at me. The same stocky build, the same square plain face, the same severely parted hair. This time she wore a dark, stiff, shiny gown. And she had one arm behind her back. And she was smiling shyly as though she weren't comfortable dressing up and being photographed. Well, you better believe I couldn't look fast enough to see the caption on that photo. Her name was Mary O'Hagerty Carney. She was from County Cork, Ireland, and she was my great-great-grandmother. Momamo, as we say in the Irish language. Mary later traveled to Ireland with my daughter and me in 2009. And I learned that she has an iron will and a wicked sense of humor. But that's another story for another day. As for tonight, if there is anything I'd like you to take away from my 2 true Irish ghost stories, it would be this. And when we need it, it finds us. When we hear stories of people having near-death experiences, they frequently mention a deceased family member or loved one who appears as a guide to help with this transition. That idea never appealed to me at all. There wasn't any family member who had crossed over that I really wanted to see again. Just people who left the earth in the middle of troubled relationships that were never resolved. But that's changed. Because of my connection to Christopher and to Mary and to Ruth, another beautiful soul and another story for another day. I now know that there is only love waiting for me. And when I die, I know my brother will open the door for me. I will go through it, and this time it will close on us both together. Gora Míle Mágat, in the Irish language, that means thanks a bunch.